Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Zechariah, the 6th chapter, and continuing from where we left off in the 5th chapter. Now, in Zechariah, the 6th chapter, there's it's once again in this continuation of this vision that Zechariah received, in which a lot of the chapters, when you go through some of the things that Zechariah saw, a lot of them were, not straightforward per se. And as we read, you'll see how he even proceeds to ask the angel, what is this, or what's going on here, and then the angel expounds onto him what it is that he is seeing. So this is Zechariah chapter 6, verse 1. Now, just a reminder in terms of context as to where we are at this point in time. Remember that Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah, and the prophet Haggai were contemporaries. And they were about the time period of right around the completion of the Second Temple. So this is during the reign of Darius, the Persian. And at this point, you have some Israelites that were of the captivity, having been returned from Babylon, are now being exhorted to finish the building of the temple. So at this point, this vision Zechariah receives, Zechariah 6:1, and I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots out from between 2 mountains. And the mountains were mountains of brass. Now, dealing with these mountains here, we know that actual mountains are not made of brass. But then again, this is what Zechariah is seeing. Now, it's entirely, possible that these mountains that Zechariah is seeing could have been, super huge chariots from which these other 4 chariots came from. And I say that because when you actually go to, let's go to it real quick, the book of 2nd Esdras, I believe is the 13th chapter, Esdras describes Yahweh Shai's chariot also in a similar manner. And I'm going to see if I can find it real quick. Here we go. This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, verse 5. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men, out of number, from the winds of the heaven, to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Now this, in 2nd Esdras 13, this verse we're reading, this is a prophecy, that is going to be fulfilled. Meaning, this that Ezra saw, this multitude that was gathered, this are the world's armies, the armies of the different nations that are going to be at war with each other upon the return of the Lord. But when he returns to the world, it's going to look like some invasion of aliens or this foreign invader. And because of that, they're going to stop fighting each other, come together and try to fight him. So that's why it says that they came from the 4 winds of heaven. So from all parts, north, east, south, west, to come together to try and subdue or to take down the Messiah, Yahweh Shai. Verse 6, but I beheld, so Ezra saw, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. See, so what Ezra saw and described as this great mountain that was graven, like it was cut out, was actually the chariot of Yahweh Shai. But it was so big that he likened it onto a mountain. Verse 7, but I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not, because that's how big this chariot was. So similarly in Zechariah the 6th chapter, as Zechariah describes these 2 mountains of brass, it's similar to 2nd Esdras 13. So it could have been 2 very huge chariots that he saw and described it as such. But that's just in this sense, spiritual extrapolation there, right? So continuing in verse 2, in the first chariot were red horses, and in the second chariot black horses, and in the third chariot white horses, and in the fourth chariot grizzled and bay horses. Okay, now these horses that Zechariah is seeing in these chariots represent the angels. Okay, and when we go to, because we read about this before, right? When we read in the book of Zechariah, the first chapter, Zechariah saw similarly these red horses. So Zechariah, let's go to it, chapter 1, verse, let's come down to verse 8. So in this vision, I saw by night, and behold, a man riding upon a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom. And behind him were there red horses, speckled and white. So there were red horses, there were speckled ones, and there were white ones. Then said I, O my Lord, what are these? And the angel that talked with me said unto me, I will show thee what these be. And then he goes into it and mentions how they go forth. Let me actually read it. Verse 10, and the man that stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, these are they whom the Lord hath sent to walk to and fro through the earth. So these are the angels of the Lord that he sent to go through the earth and patrol and report, right, to do their duty. That was their job. Just as the different angels have different roles to play. So going back to Zechariah, the 6th chapter, you have here these red horses, black horses, white horses, and grizzled and bay horses, which really these horses that he was seeing were a representation of the angels. And when you go into grizzled and bay, I believe grizzled goes into more like spotted, horses. Let's take a look there. We have barad, spotted or marked. Okay, and the word bay, you have here amataza, and it says strong, bay, dappled, piebald, whatever that means. Let's find out whatever that means. Let's see, what is this? Right, so here's an image. Here's a similar image. It says of a horse having irregular patches of two colors, typically black and white. So this is what he saw, and this is what it represents. And as we keep reading, it'll tell you that exactly that. So carrying on, verse 4. Then I answered and said unto the angel that talked with me, what are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said unto me, these are the four spirits of the heavens, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. So what spirits, right? In terms of what we know, what kind of spirits are there? You have spirits of demons, angels, and us, right? And so it wouldn't make sense for these to be, which demons are also left-handed angels, but it wouldn't make sense for these spirits to be our kinds of spirits, right? These would have to be angels, especially that it tells you that they go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. So these are angels that the Lord sent out from before him to go and accomplish whatever task he had bestowed upon them. Verse 6, the black horses which are therein go forth into the north country, which prophetically the north country represents America or Babylon, but just generally speaking, the north country would be, the northern region, okay, of the world, you could think of. And the white go forth after them. So the black horses and the white horses go in that direction. And the grizzled go forth toward the south country. And the bay went forth and sought to go that they might walk to and fro through the earth. So you had some of the angels that went in the direction to the north, some that went to the south, and then others that just went through to and fro, almost like patrol, went to and fro throughout the earth. So sometimes when we have like chariot sightings, right, and we look up in the skies and we see maybe a fleet of chariots Or sometimes you see just one chariot and then maybe a set of them behind. Or sometimes you see a cluster of chariots and then one of them is going in one direction and another in another direction. There are many videos there of chariots just moving in what looks like arbitrary directions in the air, doing some things that we don't know. But as far as we care, those are chariots. So it's like, whoa. But guess what? Whatever it is they're doing in the air, it has a purpose. The Lord sent them to do something. And sometimes when you look up and you see one, most of the time when they're moving, they're going in a certain direction. And that's because they have a certain job to do wherever it is that they're going. See, the angels of the Lord are like when you have a movie or a TV show that's being recorded or is being shot on set, you have those that are controlling the mic, those that are doing the makeup, those that are, moving the characters here, and all of these things, the behind the scenes guys that put the whole show together, right? That make this work in one way versus another. The angels sort of play a similar role. When judgment is to go forth, when somebody's mind needs to be influenced so that they can do a particular thing, to bring about a particular action, to cause a certain effect, the Lord sends the angels to go and do that. When somebody is in danger and the Lord says, no, this person cannot die, he sends an angel to go and deliver them. So the angels are constantly going forth in the earth to do the job of the Lord, whatever it may be that he requires of them. Coming back to Zechariah 6, verse 7, and he said, get you hence, walk to and fro through the earth. And this is for the bay, right? The grizzled and bay horses. So their job was to go throughout the earth. So they walked to and fro through the earth. Then cried he upon me, and spake unto me, saying, behold, these that go toward the north country have quieted my spirit in the north country. Now, let's look into the word quieted here. And the one whose spirit is quieted is the Lord, right? So it says here, Nawak, which is the name for Noah as well. And I think if we actually look for it in here, it should reference Genesis. Or maybe it might not. Let's see. So the ark rested in the 7th day of the month. Okay, so they don't reference Noah's name here. I'm curious to see if we look at, let's look for a precept with Noah in it. And let's see. And here the word is, okay, so this might be a slight variation from it. But let's look up Noah anyway. I believe Noah means comfort, right? So Genesis 5:29, if we take a look here. Oh, okay, here they have his name as Nach or Nach instead of Nawach, which is rest. But you see it says here the same as Nawach, which is H51:18. This is H51:46. All right, and the one we were looking at here was H51:17. So it's all, related in terms of the etymology of the word. Anyway, when you look into this word quieted, you have here to rest, to settle, right? Settle down, to be quiet, to cause to rest, right? To be granted rest. So going back to Zechariah 6, the angel is saying here, pretty much on behalf of the Lord, that those spirits, the angels that went to the north country have quieted the spirit, the Lord's spirit in the north country. Okay, now, like I mentioned, these angels that the Lord sends, he sends them to complete whatever objectives he needs them to do. And sometimes, there may be some wickedness going on or some judgment that may need to be executed. And so the Lord sends those angels to go and execute that judgment. And in doing so, they appease his wrath, right? There's a precept that says that. Let's see. Appease the wrath. And this should be in maybe, there we go. Ecclesiasticus 39:28. There be spirits that are created for vengeance, which in their fury lay on sore strokes. In the time of destruction, they pour out their force and appease the wrath of him that made them, right? And who is that him whose wrath is getting appeased? The Most High. So when the Lord sends judgment forth and the angels execute that, that appeases his wrath. It's like when somebody is angry and they finally get to have the satisfaction of their revenge. Verse 9, and the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, take of them of the captivity, even of Heldai, of Tobijah, and of Jedaiah, which are come from Babylon, and come thou the same day, and go into the house of Josiah the son of Zephaniah. So the Lord was saying to Zechariah to go in and select these men here, right, and then go to Josiah the son of Zephaniah. Now these men that were mentioned in here were, like as we just read here, a part of those that were brought from, or that came from Babylon. But these men were, or would have to be considered a part of the heads, right? Because you had Zerubbabel, you had Joshua, and then you had the rest of the princes and the chief, the fathers, and so on and so forth. Verse 16, then take silver and gold and make crowns, and set them upon the head of Joshua, the son of Josedek, the high priest. Okay, and why is that? Because, like I just mentioned, Joshua was a individual, and these crowns here that Zechariah is being told to make and then set it upon their heads, it's a representation, right? As it says, the symbolic crowns to represent this individual, and not just this individual, but these individuals, because the rest of them are also going to get those crowns, but it's to represent them in that high position, right? Because these weren't just regular men; these are men in the in high ranking in the spirit, similar to the vision that Ezra saw in Second Ezra's the 2nd chapter, the 40th verse on down, about Yahushua putting crowns upon the heads of those that stood stiffly for the Lord. Okay, so them being the crowns being put on their heads was a representation, okay, of them being put in those high positions. It says here, and speak unto him, saying, thus speaketh the Lord Yahweh of hosts, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch. Now, this man whose name is the branch, this is referring to Yahushua, okay, the Messiah. And he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Now, when you take a look in here, which when we read, I believe this came up in Zechariah, the 4th chapter as well, we went into the proving of how Yahushua is the branch, or he is known here as the branch. And a precept also for that, I think it's Isaiah, either Isaiah the 2nd chapter or Isaiah the 11th chapter, where it talks about that branch from Jesse, right? The stem from Jesse. Now, when you look into the word branch here, even the blue letter will tell you, right? Tazamach, sprout shoot of Messiah from Davidic tree. And what that means is the Messiah came from the family tree or the lineage of King David. Okay, so going back to Zechariah the 6th chapter, now let's get a quick precept for this, because it says here that this individual, this man whose name is the branch, was going to build the temple of the Lord. This temple of the Lord that is referring to here is not the second temple that they were in the process of building right now. This is referring to the third temple. And the third temple is not a temple built with hands per se. Okay, the third temple is not a physical building, but it's actually the representation of the elect, or the believers, or the church, or the house of David. It has many names, but that is the third temple. And it's not built by taking physical stones and bricks and putting it on top of each other, but rather by the teaching of this word and the gathering of the elect together. Just like you take one brick and put it upon another and build a building that is tightly knit together. That's the in a spiritual level that is happening by us teaching this word, and the word going out and reaching the elect and gathering them and drawing them in, okay, to the completion of the building. all upon the foundation of Yahushai. So now let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 18, and just getting to the point. And I say unto thee, now if I select red letter here, you'll see that these were the words of the Messiah. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And that church is the temple, the third temple, which represents the elect, okay, or the house of David. And it says here, I will build my church, because Yahushua was the originator of the building. We are followers, or men that have entered into other men's labors. And similarly, the Apostle Paul mentions, be ye followers of me, even as I am of Hamashiach, okay, or of Yahushai. Let's see, another precept that I wanted to get. Let's go to the book of Hebrews, the 3rd chapter, and we'll come back here again as we keep on reading in Zechariah, the 3rd chapter, or the 6th chapter. But I just want to have this on deck for now. Okay, so continuing in Zechariah 6 and 13. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And we know that's referring to Yahushua, because he is the one. What did the Lord tell him after the sacrifice that he did, right, of bearing the sins of the nation upon him and being crucified? The scriptures say that the Lord said, this is, I believe, King David that said that the Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. That is going to happen when the Heavenly Father permits his son, Yahushua, the Messiah, to come back to the earth and to subject the world under him, so he can gain his glory and enact righteousness, okay, and get that throne. It says here, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace shall be between them both. Now, he's also known as the Prince of Peace. But what's interesting is Yahushua being, because in the customs of ancient Israel, the king was separate, right? The king was a king, and the priests were the priests. You weren't supposed to mix the two. And that is why, because they had different duties. And that is why, as an example, the story of, I believe it was Uzziah, who, being a king, was overzealous and ended up forcing his way into the temple to burn incense upon the altar, which was not his role to do. And immediately when he did that, the Lord had struck him with leprosy from his head on down. However, Yahushua not only is the king, but is also our high priest, okay, in the heavens, as the scriptures tell you in the book of Hebrews. So as it says, he shall be a priest upon his throne, the first of many, I should put it, because in the kingdom, we're also going to be a nation of kings and priests. And the council of peace shall be between them both. So now let's go to the book of Hebrews, the 3rd chapter, and you know what? Let's start at verse 1. Wherefore, holy brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider the apostle and high priest of our profession, Yahushua, or Hamashiach Yahushua, right? The anointed Yahushua. So he lets you know here that he was a high priest. He was also an apostle. Okay. Continuing, right, of our profession, who was faithful to him that appointed him, as also Moses was faithful in all his house. And who was it that appointed the Lord? The Most High. Verse 3, for this man was counted worthy of more glory than Moses. Now remember, when we go back to Zechariah, it says to what? He shall bear the glory and shall sit and rule upon his throne. So back in Hebrews chapter 3, inasmuch as he who hath builded the house hath more honor than the house. For every house is builded by some man, but he that built all things is God. And Moses verily was faithful in all his house as a servant, for a testimony of those things which were to be spoken after. So the role that Moses played was likened unto a servant that was faithful in the house of his master. But Yahushai, verse 6, but Hamashiach as a son over his own house, whose house are we, if we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. So that's why it says he was greater than Moses, because Moses was great, but he was likened unto a servant, faithful in this house or the house of his master, while Yahushai was likened unto the son, i.e. the inheritor of everything in the house. And as it says, whose house are we, right? Going back to the church, going back to the temple that he was to build. Well, guess what? That's us. And when I say us, I'm referring to the hopeful elect, right? But in actuality here, it's referring to or starting with the elect. If we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. So now let's go back to the book of Zechariah chapter 6, verse 14. And the crowns shall be to Helam and to Tobijah. So when we go back up to verse 11, remember that Zechariah was told to take the silver and the gold and to make crowns, plural, and then to set one upon the head of Joshua. And now in verse 14, you have here, it says, the crowns shall be to Helam and to Tobijah and to Jedaiah and to Hen, the son of Zephaniah, for a memorial in the temple of the Lord. And so, like I mentioned, this is because these men were, the heads, okay, of their time, but they're not the only, it's a symbolic crown, right? They're not the only ones that are going to be crowned with that. As a matter of fact, the rest of the elect are going to be crowned with that. Okay, but it's a representation because those that receive these crowns, okay, are those, like it says, for a memorial in the temple of the Lord. They are those likened on to 2 Ezra 2 and 40 on down, those that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord, that received that reward, that were granted those new names and that high position. Okay. Verse 15, and they that are far off shall come and build in the temple of the Lord. And ye shall know that the Lord Yahweh of hosts hath sent me unto you. And this shall come to pass, if ye will diligently obey the voice of the Lord Yahweh your God. Now, the interesting thing about this is, they that are coming from far to build the temple of the Lord, that's happening, in its fullness now. Okay, because back then, those that built the temple of the Lord, the second temple, were primarily the southern kingdom. And we read about that in Esdras and first Esdras and the book of Ezra, about who was actually building the temple and who completed the building of it. But the northern kingdom were here in the Americas. Okay, so this temple that's going to be built by those that are going to come from far is referring on to the third temple. And the way that's being built, like I mentioned before, is by us prophesying, by us going out there and teaching, by us doing these lessons, and that's a part or likened onto building. And when I say us, I'm referring to, the sincere brothers, right? The sincere teachers that are all over the world, that heard this truth, that heard this word, that heard this ministry, and were moved in the spirit to contribute. Guess what? They are coming from all different parts and are contributing to the building of the temple of the Lord. And ye shall know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto you. So in doing this, the Lord has stirred up our minds, our pure minds by way of remembrance, all right, to make this statement true. That we know that this is happening because the Heavenly Father, has sent out his Spirit upon us in order to wake us up, in order to do this. And this shall come to pass if ye will diligently obey the voice of the Lord Yahweh your God. And lo and behold, that's exactly what's happening today. So that brings us to the end of Zechariah, the 6th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.